Welcome aspiring archaeologists to the Scarabya tutorial. Scarabya is a competitive tile placement game for 1 to 4 players. There are 3 suggested game modes in the book. First, I'll explain the standard variant of play. To do this, each player takes a frame and the tiles and plastic mounting pieces of the matching color. Then the youngest player will take these 4 larger tiles and arrange them in their frame in any way they like. The other players around the table will match this exact pattern so that all players have the same board in front of them. Then you'll take the plastic mountain tokens and place them in the empty spaces. You can set the rest of your tiles off to the side, and you can place the Scarab victory point tokens within reach of all players. Then you'll take the deck of cards, shuffle it, and place it beside the youngest player. And now you're ready to begin. The youngest player will reveal the top card from the deck. Then all players will have to take this matching tile and place it somewhere on their board. When you're placing the first tile, it must lay on top of one of the center 4 spaces, and it can be oriented in any way you'd like. Once all players have placed a tile, then they will reveal the next card and take that new tile and place it onto their board. But this time, instead of needing to have the tile overlap one of the center 4 spaces, they now need the tile to touch at least one side of a previously placed tile. So, for example, this would be okay because the sides here are touching, whereas this would not be okay because they're only touching on a corner. The objective of the game is to place tiles so that you surround scarabs. Here I've just placed a tile that has closed off this section, which means now I could score it. When you score a section like this, you score it by the number of spaces times the number of scarabs inside it. So here I have 1, 2, 3, and there's 2 scarabs in there, so I would get 6 points. An easy way to remind yourself of this is to take the scarab tokens and place them in the section you scored. And play like this would continue until all the cards have been revealed. Now if you reveal a tile that you cannot physically place anywhere on your board, then you have to discard it. It just loses you an opportunity to potentially score more points. However, if you can physically place the tile somewhere, then you must. Keep in mind, however, even if you block off an area, such as this, you don't score it unless the block off area is 4 spaces or less. And those are the basics of play. And as I mentioned, once all the cards have been revealed and every player has placed all their tiles or discarded the ones that they cannot, the game is over and the players will count up their points. Something interesting to keep in mind though is that because every player has the exact same board, you could copy the other player's movements, but if you did, it would only result in a tie. So you need to get creative and think ahead to score the most points for yourself. Now that's just the main way to play the game, and there are 2 smaller variants: one-on-one and solo play. When you're playing one-on-one, the 2 players will use the same board, and they'll play the game as normal, revealing tiles and placing them following the same rules. However, they will alternate placing tiles, and when they score scarabs, they keep them in their own score pile. So here player 1 places this tile, and player 2 places this one. And instead of placing the scoring scarab on the board, they would keep it for themselves, and play would continue as normal. However, in this mode, because the second player may place less tiles than the first, there's an extra rule that the player who went second gets a scarab token at 1 point value for each scarab that has not been scored. So for example here, after playing this one-on-one game to completion, all the scarabs have been scored except for this lone one here at the very end. And so the second player would take 1 point to themselves. And then to keep it fair, you could have a rematch where you reset everything but keep the order of the cards exactly the same, and instead have the second player go first and the first player goes second. And then there's solo play. In solo play, you're not an archaeologist trying to uncover scarabs. Instead, you're a descendant of an ancient civilization where you're trying to hide all the scarabs. You still follow the exact same rules for placing tiles, but this time you're trying to cover up all the scarabs. And if you manage to do so, you win. And if you don't, you can always retry. And that's how you play Scarabya in its 3 game modes. It's a very simple tile placement game that you can teach anybody. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, like the video and subscribe to the channel to support the future release of more tutorials. But for now, thanks for watching.